Marriage starts today in Alabama, but the usual suspects are still trying to figure out a way to stop it. Nebraska accidentally passed a bill that will recognize gay and lesbian couples, but only when they're carrying a concealed firearm. And we're on the fast track for several rulings in some southern states. For the American Foundation for Equal Rights, I'm Matt Baum, and welcome to Marriage News Watch for February 9th, 2015. Hey there, things have changed a little bit since I shot and edited this week's video, so I'm putting this little message at the beginning to update you. Marriage was supposed to be starting this week in Alabama, but late Sunday night, Alabama Supreme Court Chief Justice Roy Moore issued a ruling that state judges should disobey the federal ruling that marriage should start. Now, Moore has created a constitutional crisis. What he's doing is equivalent to George Wallace standing in a schoolhouse door to block school integration in 1963. And just like with George Wallace, federal law enforcement officers may have to intervene in Alabama. Whatever happens, just bear in mind that the next few days are going to have a lot of twists and turns. The situation's moving quickly and might have changed again by the time you see this. But that's just how the fight for civil rights is. A little messy, a little unpredictable, but always worth it in the end. Now here's this week's episode. This is it. As of today, marriage equality is legal in Alabama. Previously, officials said that they needed more time to prepare, in part because all of the forms say husband and wife. But miraculously, faced with a court order, they seem to have managed to alter the forms in just the nick of time. Meanwhile, the people you'd expect to be outraged about this are all outraged. That includes Alabama Attorney General Luther Strange, that's his real name. He asked the U.S. Supreme Court to put a stop to the marriages, but that's probably not going to happen. In December, the Supreme Court let marriage start in Florida under almost exactly the same circumstances. So for now, marriage is probably safe in Alabama, and there's not much that Luther Strange can do about it. Next up, there's Alabama Supreme Court Chief Justice Roy Moore. He's the guy who got removed from office in 2003 for judicial misconduct when he disobeyed a federal order regarding a Ten Commandments statue. Voters re-elected him in 2012, and no surprise, he's threatening again to disregard federal courts. Moore wrote a letter to Alabama judges telling them that the federal courts can't tell them what to do. The fact that he was removed from office just a few years ago for making that claim doesn't seem to have made much of an impression on him. Anyway, Moore is just wrong. The rulings are binding, marriage is legal, and if the judges refuse to issue licenses, as some have threatened to do, they can be found in contempt of court and sentenced to a fine or jail time. There's also Mike Huckabee, who had a lot to say last week. First, he called being gay a lifestyle and compared being gay to drinking alcohol, liking ballet, or going to the opera. Then he said that asking businesses to recognize gay and lesbian couples is like asking a Jewish deli to serve bacon and shrimp. And finally, he said that marriage equality is like forcing a Muslim couple to have dogs in their backyard. The main takeaway from all of this is that Mike Huckabee is very bad at analogies. And finally, there's State Senator Del Marsh, who said that marriage equality is a bad idea because gay and lesbian people will expect to use Social Security and to use each other's health insurance, and that will cost the state too much money. But saving money has never been a reason for disobeying the U.S. Constitution, and on top of that, studies show that marriage equality will actually save the state money because it reduces spending on Medicare and Medicaid, and that marriage will add $21.7 million to Alabama's economy over the next 3 years. Not to mention, there are a lot more straight married couples than gay married couples in Alabama, so if Del Marsh really wants to save some money, he could start denying Social Security to straight couples. Elsewhere in the country, Nebraska may accidentally start recognizing gay and lesbian couples. The state just passed a concealed weapons law that applies to military spouses, but because the military recognizes same-sex marriages, that means that Nebraska would too, but only for the purposes of having a concealed weapon. It's a start. Those are the headlines. Congratulations to all the happy couples in Alabama. Subscribe here to stay up to date on all these stories. For the American Foundation for Equal Rights, I'm Matt Baum. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.